Hello, my name is Joy and I'm an avid reader and writer. And now I don't know what to do with my intro because normally I talk about my fantasy book that I was drafting, but that's not what we're doing this video. If you don't know, I just finished a first draft of my fantasy novel, Project Phoenix, or at least that's what I'm currently calling it. And I just did revision prep for it. So if you're interested in that whole writing journey, I'll probably make like a whole playlist for it and link it down below. However, today we're doing something a little different. We're gonna branch out. We're starting to brainstorm for new projects. Not to like plug all of my other videos. Like stay on this video if you want to watch it. But I did make another video that was about like all the books that I want to write. I featured two projects in specific that they're little babies in my mind, but very underdeveloped ideas. And they're both fantasy ideas. And I currently have them nicknamed Project Saul and Project Garden. And for this video, I would like to delve into brainstorming for both of them. I can't just sit here on my hands doing literally absolutely nothing while I'm waiting to revise Project Phoenix. So I just want to start on some other projects. I think one of these two projects I will go with as like my next project once Project Phoenix is completely done. But I think I will probably eventually do both of them. So I figure I may as well brainstorm them and then just kind of go with my gut and go with the one that I'm most excited for, the one I feel most ready to write. And who knows how far I'm gonna take it before I start revising Project Phoenix. I mean, I don't think I would write an entire first draft, but maybe I would do a zero draft. I don't know. But that's not what this video is. For now, we're just gonna brainstorm together, and I'm really excited because that's gonna involve like scrolling through Pinterest and making a playlist and figuring out the vibes, figuring out like the skeleton bare bones of world building for both of these projects, figuring out main characters. There's gonna be like a lot involved, and it's a really exciting stage in the process. So if you're interested in that, let's brainstorm together. I think I'm gonna start with Project Saul because I already have a Scrivener document for it ready, and I already very loosely started this process because I was having some ideas for it. With my previous project, Project Phoenix, I was very all over the place when it came to like my brainstorming and with deciding how the plot could go. I don't know. I honestly like pantsed most of that process. I just kind of did what felt right. I didn't really think about theme beforehand when I was coming up with the world. I just was mashing together a lot of things that I personally like. And once I enter the revision process a couple months from now, I'm going to have to smooth out all of the roughness of that and try to find and discover something from that. But I will say with the brainstorming process for these next two projects, I do want to try to be more intentional, especially now that I do have a complete first draft under my belt. I kind of have a better idea of like what elements I need to think about the most. I'm not the type of person that's going to flesh everything out about my world. Like I know there are some world building questionnaires out there where you can answer a ton of questions that go super in depth in a lot of areas. I think during the brainstorming phase, I might flesh out a few components that I think are going to be the most relevant to the world. And then the rest of it is mostly going to be vibes. And as I'm writing the first draft or as I'm revising, I'll come up with world building elements that are relevant to the plot. But initially for this brainstorming phase, I'm not going to like completely build the world and then start the story. I'm kind of going to do both in tandem and yeah, primarily focus on world building. A few elements that I think will be most significant, if that makes sense. I feel like I'm going on all these tangents just about my general approach, but for this project specifically, let me tell you about like what I very loosely have in mind. I don't have a specific plot, but I do have a loose theme that I want to explore, and there's going to be like other themes as well. But the primary question that I think is going to drive the narrative is, can a person that has done horrible, horrific things find redemption? It could branch out to like other people as well, but it is going to be exploring it with this specific main character. But I'm not necessarily thinking of it in terms of crime and punishment vibes. If you've read that book, I do love Crime and Punishment. That one's a little bit like, I guess, esoteric, and I feel like Raskolnikov, even though he does a really bad thing, it comes from the fact that he isolated himself and then he became obsessed with like a certain philosophy and then did that thing and then realized, oh crap, like I actually have a conscience, like I can't do this. It is very much an exploration on redemption. So I do love stories like that. I think it actually literally, okay, do not roll your eyes. Okay, I feel like I've mentioned Blood Over Brighthaven by Emma Wong in like every single video that I've made since I read it. I feel like we need to make a bingo card for my YouTube channel, and Blood Over Brighthaven is gonna be one of the options. But okay. I came up with this idea before reading Blood Over Brighthaven, but now that I've read Blood Over Brighthaven, I think it actually would make a really good comp, just saying. It does it in a different way from what I think I'm gonna do, but it does explore character transformation from a character that grew up with a very entrenched belief system and then ended up completely deconstructing that belief system and switching over. And, you know, they did it in a messy way. It was imperfect, but I crave that intense character transformation and realization of their old belief systems being really corrupt and shifting to a new belief system. So that's really what the concept for Project Sol hinges upon. And there's so much that might change about it, but my initial gut for what this would look like would be there's some sort of oppressive government, because you know there has to be. I'm specifically thinking of like a theocratic oligarchy where like the church unilaterally leads the government and there's like a council that's in power. And you know, it has its own logic. It's not completely corrupt, because I don't necessarily want it to be like cartoonish where literally everything is wrong with this government, but there are gonna be some like major faults, right? And one of those major faults is that maybe they don't take death that seriously. Like, because say there's like a belief in the afterlife or something where they're like, hey, like if you die you'll be fine because you'll just come back, or like I don't know, I haven't decided what like that whole system is, but I think it would be really interesting if, say, this main character of mine, he has a role in this government and he's fully bought into the system, and I'm thinking that he is probably in a very like feared role. So like say this government does just kill people because they think that they'll be like reborn or something according to their religion. It makes it more of like a mercy thing. They have a way that they've twisted it to where it seems like it's the moral thing to do, right? Because like most people, I mean, some people certainly would do things for an evil reason, but like sometimes people do the wrong things for reasons that they think are right or justified. So I don't know, I want to kind of explore that. But anyway, my idea is that this main character, like he's part of the military, part of the government, and he's practically like an executioner. He's been tasked with killing specific people that the government tells him to kill, but like in his mind, like it's not that big of a deal because he's been told that it's not that big of a deal according to his belief system. This might be taking like this might be like biting off more than I can chew, frankly, but honestly, I'm intrigued by it, even though it might be exploring some like uncomfortable topics. I also kind of want there to be an enemies to lovers element to this, or at least, if not like a full-on romance, like some sort of a romantic interest. So I don't know. I feel like I've rambled about this enough. I need to like get to like the actual brainstorming part, but I'm actually getting really excited about some of what this might be, because I don't know, it's just, I'm gonna start by just scrolling through Pinterest and start making a little playlist for it based on the vibes that I want, and that will help me to sort of like start adding texture to the world. Maybe I'll make a mood board. Actually, that sounds like a really fun idea. And kind of in tandem with this, I'll write down ideas for the setting and more ideas for like what that religion might entail. And then from there, I mean, I already know in terms of the plot that I'm going to be trying to explore a redemption arc for a person that like has done really, really bad things for reasons that he thought were justifiable, but like turns out, oops, like you were on the wrong side, dude. So like what are you going to do with that information? Are you going to continue on in what's comfortable, or are you going to like completely reform and change your approach to everything? Browsing Pinterest is interesting because I feel like 90% of the things that I find on there nowadays are AI. We're not gonna enter a whole AI discourse right now. It's a little bit annoying to me, not gonna lie. If the purpose is strictly to like have visualizations of things, okay, fine. Like, it's an easy way to like generate ideas, and like I think that it can be used as a good brainstorming tool, but it is a little bit exhausting because I feel like I end up wading through like so many pictures that just like feed off of each other and all look so similar, and it's like, okay, give me a little bit more creativity than this, please. I just feel like AI is starting to like cannibalize itself. I might just have to do some deeper digging and find corners of Pinterest that aren't just a bunch of AI fodder. But anyway, I'm finding some interesting things. I'm trying to identify the kind of aesthetic that I want. Originally, I was leaning towards something that was almost like Full Metal Alchemist, the anime, where it takes place, I believe, in like the early 1900s, but also has some steampunk elements to it, but not anything too extreme. So that was sort of initially what I was envisioning. But I did fall down a rabbit hole of like baroque period fashion, and I kind of saw a few things merging like steampunk with baroque architecture and fashion, which was very cool. So I'm a little bit torn between like the different, I guess, aesthetics, if you will. And right now it sort of feels like set dressing. I mean, yes, the aesthetic of a book and the vibes of a book are a great thing to keep in mind, but I want the setting to really support whatever the plot is. I do know that I want there to be trains, like at the bare minimum. Like, trains exist because I have a train scene already in my mind, and frankly, like, I wouldn't be opposed to like airships either. So like some sort of a world where those things fit, right? And it is really fun because the possibilities are endless, but also, you know, you have to figure, okay, well, if they are capable of trains and airships, like what else are they capable of having? Why are they capable of having it? How has technology progressed to this point? Because I want the world to obviously feel like cohesive and organic and lived in. So I kind of start off with the elements that I want, that I know that I want, and like work out from there logically, like what they would have. So like if they have airships, they probably, I mean, I don't know, like what is their source of power? Is it powered by magic, or is it just like technology, or is it a combination of the two? And then of course, yeah, I also have to like decide, okay, is there a magic system? How does the magic system work? How is it going to support like the story that I'm trying to tell and the themes that I'm trying to draw out? So okay, as you can tell, like this initial brainstorming process is very fun, but also slightly overwhelming and very much a mess because my mind like starts spiderwebbing into all of these different things, and it's like, okay, let's focus. Some other things I was just considering while I was scrolling Pinterest was some scenes and elements I would like to have. So a lot of these, just full caveat, like they start off from more of like a trope point. I mean, these are all things that I have seen in other mediums. So like honestly, in this brainstorming stage, a lot of what comes out initially are the tropes, are the familiar things. And tropes are not inherently a bad thing either. I know some people like want everything to be completely original, but I think the originality comes out of what you do with said tropes. So like I personally don't have a problem with like having a bunch of tropes in my stories as long as I'm doing it well and as long as they serve the story that I'm trying to tell. But anyway, some of the things that were coming to mind where I was like, okay, I do want this to also be a factor. I can't resist having a little bit of romance, so like I do kind of want that to be a factor, but I also don't want it to be like a, oh, she saves him, she's the one that shows him the light. She might play a role in helping him to see things differently, but I very much want to avoid that being the lesson here. But all that being said, in terms of the romance, I do love a good like secret identity. I would love it if the love interest was like part of a rebellion or outright against the powers that be and is somehow undercover or trying to gather information and somehow befriends our main character. And of course she knows who he is, but he doesn't know who she is, type of deal is what I'm thinking. Alternatively, he's the one that goes undercover. Whoa. Hang on. Hang on. What if they both go undercover? I don't feel like that really works because how would they like not recognize each other? Secret identities both ways. Oh my gosh. I eat stuff like that up. Oh my gosh. Okay, I need to write that down as a possibility. I would have to figure all that out because like I think that she would logically be undercover first and be either like a servant or, oh, what if they like had like some sort of a ball? Okay, that's another thing. I want there to be like a ball, you know, like a dance or something that happens, because I eat that stuff up as well with like political machinations and stuff, and that's where they like initially cross paths or something. I don't know. I'm just interested. And then like, yeah, if he goes undercover and then like sees her and she recognizes him, that's all stuff I'll need to puzzle out later. But like, those are just initial ideas that I'm just like putting down. And then yeah, sometimes leaps like that happen, epiphanies like that happen, and I don't know for sure if I'm gonna go down that rabbit hole, but like, it got me excited. And if I can solve some of the problems with that, that could be a core part of the plot. There obviously has to also be a reason for this character to like start changing and to realize the error of his ways. But yeah, in order to like fully explore that, I feel like his shift would maybe be the midpoint. And then I don't know what the ending of the book would be. Honestly, like, I have the most trouble with conclusions, if I'm being honest. The sort of natural ending is that they take down the government. I feel like that always happens in stories like these. And when I think about that, it makes me feel tired. Like, I'm like, okay, do I really want that to be the climax of this book? Even though clearly like the government needs to go away, but like, what happens if you can't? Like, what do you do if you literally, like, if you're still powerless? But I don't know if that feels like a satisfying conclusion or not. I don't know. Those were some of my initial thoughts. I'm gonna start trying to like piece together maybe a playlist or a mood board. I'm gonna write down some of these ideas as well, because I was just verbally processing with y'all some of the things that came to mind while I was scrolling Pinterest. Welcome to my brain. It's a fun, wild place, okay? But I hope that you're enjoying just listening to me ramble, and maybe this is getting you excited for like your project. I hope that it is. Okay, now I have the critical mass of my playlist decided upon, so I'll be playing that while I kind of work on the rest of the brainstorming process, which is kind of fun because, I don't know, I feel like the music just sets the vibe. And this playlist is what I will primarily listen to while I'm writing the book. So I do try to stick with primarily instrumental music if I can help it, just because it's easier for me to write to instrumental music. But I did find a handful of songs that I think listening to the lyrics might like help to inspire me some. And I don't know, they just like kind of captured some of the vibe, but also some of the like, I don't know, especially the romance part of the book that I want to include, just to give you some ideas of what I chose. So all of the instrumentals are classical music specifically. In my old like project Phoenix, which it's not old, like I'm still actively going to be working on it, but in that other project I have a big range of instrumental music from like anime and video games and a little bit of classical music, but it's primarily music from shows and movies and stuff more like that. Whereas for this book, I specifically intentionally picked like only classical music so far because I just feel like that's the vibe. I primarily picked songs that were from the baroque period. So like the first song that I added actually was Winter by Vivaldi. One of my favorite pieces. But I also added in some other things as I was looking. Lots of things in minor keys as well. As for songs with lyrics, I have two Hosier songs. I actually started with It Will Come Back by Hosier. I also added Sunlight by Hosier and Run Boy Run by Woodkid, The Night We Met by Lord Huron. Honestly, a lot of these song lyrics kind of just help with the idea process. I don't know what I'm actually gonna end up going with, but like, it's all very inspirational, so like, I'm kind of loving this right now. It's really fun. I haven't decided how much I want the romance to be central to it. Obviously, a lot of these song lyrics kind of are making it feel more that way, but again, like, I don't know yet. I'm wrestling a bit because I don't want the theme to necessarily be like, oh, she transforms him. Like, he has to do that hard work on his own, and maybe she's the spark that like ignites that initially, but like, she's not going to be the one that fixes him. I'm very adamant about that. I want to be very clear that that's not what's going to happen, but I do think that she could be, so like, he transforms or like turns, but she might be instrumental in his healing in the long run. like maybe she chooses to love him, like, or is the first person to decide to give him a second chance. Maybe something along those lines, but like he has to do the hard work first as well. You know what I mean? I might need to make a separate video, I'm realizing, for like the other project because this is already turning into a long video. Oh my goodness. But okay, I am going to start working on the mood board and stuff, or at least like assembling some pictures, and I'll probably just show you the end result. And I'll probably just show you the end result because I've already showed you like the process of making a mood board in a previous video, and it kind of does take a little bit of a long time. Basically, I just gather a bunch of pictures from a bunch of different sources. I try to stick to royalty free if I can, but sometimes I do round it out with some things off of Pinterest because like I'm not selling this or anything like that. It's just for my own personal reference while I'm writing, so I don't really feel too bad about like using some stuff off of Pinterest. And really I'm just looking for things that fit the vibe, maybe a few, if I can find some scenes that I have in mind. I don't know, like, well, I guess we'll just see. Some pretty good progress over the last couple of days. Last night I had my writing live stream with Amelia and Emily, which if you don't follow those two, oh my word, their writing vlogs are to die for. They're so aesthetic, so beautiful, and so articulate in their stories. They're both also working on fantasy projects, so do subscribe to them. I beg of you, if you are not subscribed to them already. Last night during the sprints, I was primarily working on brainstorming for this story, Project Saul, and I was figuring out a little, like, I was trying to figure out some of the like intricacies of this government and like the different positions that are in it. And I also started working on the magic system, which, not gonna lie, the magic system is probably one of the more intimidating parts to world building to me, but I'm starting to figure something out that I think is going to work really well for the storyline that I have in mind, because I really do want the magic system to be woven into the world. Like, I don't want it to just be like slapped on top of it as like set dressing, you know? So to start off with it, I just tried to ask myself a few questions of, okay, what is the purpose of magic in this world? Like, what does it accomplish? I also asked the question of who gets to use magic, and even those two questions alone, those are like the two baseline fundamental questions for a magic system in my mind, because that helps to make sure it's more intertwined with your world and with your plot and even your theme. Because from there, I am going to get more into, okay, what is the effect of magic and what is the cost of magic? Because, you know, those things are also pretty necessary for a hard magic system, at least. And from there, of course, you have like the aesthetic, which is maybe the more fun part. What does magic look like, smell like, feel like? Another question that's maybe more of a fundamental question is, where does magic come from? Which I don't think you always necessarily have to answer that question. I think that that could remain mysterious or just be attributed to like something divine, or like it just exists in this world. Like, that can be more hand wavy unless you do want to get specific about it. But I think in the past with magic systems, I tended to start off with the aesthetics or the visual idea of like what I wanted it to look like and feel like. And there's nothing necessarily wrong with that, but then I sometimes would have a hard time marrying it with the theme that I was trying to build towards. So by starting off with what role does magic play in your world and who gets to have it, I feel like that was a good foundation for me and really unlocked a lot of what I was needing to figure out. And I still have a lot more details to hash out, like limitations and all that sort of thing. But I am pretty excited that I have at least the beginnings of my magic system sorted. But okay, you just saw actually that I completed my mood board. Oh my gosh. really okay. The mood board always gets me so hyped and like inspired. So I'm very excited about that. As you can probably tell, I definitely decided to lean into like the Baroque time period aesthetic. So that's the vibes. And I think it pairs really well with the extreme religious, like, institution government thing that's going on as well. But I also am going to include stuff like airships still and trains and more steampunk things. So it has the Baroque, I guess, aesthetic, but obviously it's not strictly tied to our world in any sort of way. That's just, it's more of the vibes type deal, and the vibes go with some of the themes, but it's not necessarily a one-to-one ratio to our world either, or a direct commentary on our world necessarily. And I do think that bringing in, of course, some of those fantastical elements like the airships and the magic powered technology, borderline steampunk, but like think a toned down steampunk that would pair well with Baroque. I don't know, in my mind it just like works somehow. Obviously I couldn't really find pictures to reflect all of that perfectly, but yeah. As you notice, there's also going to be a lot of ravens because ravens are going to play a role in the story, as well as like some sort of death magic, which might be a little bit cliche, but I like it. So I'm just going with it, and things can change later, but like, I don't know, why not? I do almost feel like it's kind of a fun contrast where like we have all of these, you know, bright, intricate colors from like the Baroque vibes that are going on, but there's also kind of the underbelly of that with the death magic and questions of like death and life and rebirth and like eternity, and I don't know, I just feel like it's all starting to come together in my mind. But anyway, my husband just got home and we have a date night tonight, so I've got to run and do that. I'm honestly so excited. It's been forever since we've had a night out together. Yeah, now that I'm done with the mood board, I'm gonna just kind of like leave it be for tonight, and I will see you the next time I sit down to brainstorm for this project, and hopefully I can actually start getting, I don't know, I guess a bare bones outline down. That's my goal. Okay, wow, I've been having a lot of fun, and I've been spending a lot of time on this project. Like, not gonna lie, this whole like brainstorming session has taken me like way longer than I anticipated it taking. But I think part of it is that I've gotten really excited, so I've just dug in deeper and elaborated more than I think I thought I was going to. I think the last time I chatted with you all, I had just finished the mood board, and since then, like, it's been a couple of days, and like I spent almost all day on this yesterday, but I didn't film any of it because I just it was one of those days I didn't really feel like being perceived. I just wanted to be like a little goblin in my lair, and I wanted to just brainstorm and have fun with this book. I really continued down some of the trails that I had already begun, and then I also started a preliminary outline, and I started writing a little bit of like the first chapter just to get a sense. I mean, it's obviously like not polished or anything, but I just wanted to get a sense of how it might start, you know, like kind of have that little spark. But in the end result for my Scrivener document, I have a section for, of course I have like the manuscript part itself, but in like the notes section, I have a spot for the blurb slash logline, which I didn't finish, but I started playing around with a little bit. Hello, really quick. I was just editing this video and I realized that I did not expand at all on like what a log line is or anything like that. And to be honest, I don't feel fully qualified to talk about it because I haven't really created very many log lines. I'm still figuring it out. But in case you don't know, a log line is basically a one sentence summary, or maybe not even summary. It's more like a one sentence pitch of your story. It's your story fully condensed, and it really gets into the heart of the conflict and what the story is basically going to be about on like a really high level. And when I was initially recording the ending of this video, I had not come up with a log line, but I've since been working on it quite a bit. I came up with a bunch of options, and I think that I've settled on one that I maybe like. So I'm going to put on the screen some of the possible formulas that I've found for log lines. That's honestly like the most helpful way to write them, in my opinion. Lots of people that are smarter than I am or have more experience have come up with these formulas where basically you just kind of plug and play and mess around to figure out which one works best for your story. Most of them start out with the protagonist or the inciting incident, which makes a lot of sense. I feel like my story so far doesn't have a super clear inciting incident. Some stories have super, like my Project Phoenix, it has a very clear inciting incident. This story that I'm working on right now, there is an inciting incident, but it's more subtle, so it's not going to be as punchy and something like a log line. So that's where the last formula that I found, which is protagonist, action, antagonist, goal, and stake, works a lot better since there isn't a super definitive inciting incident, if that makes sense. At least not so far in the way that I've been outlining and structuring and zero drafting this book. So yeah, I ended up using the last one. You can see the highlights that I made to kind of try to identify what I was trying to do with each piece. Let me just read it to you. This is what I have so far. Aki, a devout reaper / holy executioner. I couldn't decide which one would be more interesting, so let me know. Do you find like devout reaper more interesting? Because reaper with a capital R, it's proper now. That's like his title. That's what he does. Essentially, he is an executioner. He's tasked with collecting souls and sending them to the gods to be purified, particularly of like criminals and people that are like really bad and awful or are like defying the order, which is like the theocratic oligarchy that I've come up with. But I don't know if reaper has too much baggage or it's more intriguing to people because they know like what a reaper generally does, or if holy executioner is clear. I don't know. I just haven't decided, so I have it bracketed with a slash in there because I just haven't decided yet how I want to have that in the log line. Anyway, the theocratic order, which again, it's like another proper noun, which that might be discouraged in log lines. I don't know, but it feels self-explanatory to me because it's not like a super fancy name, you know. I might also replace theocratic order with like of the theocratic regime or government, or I don't know. That's another thing I'm figuring out. Okay. Must root out. That's the action. A growing rebellion. That is technically the antagonist of the story, at least initially. But there's going to be a lot of shifts that happen over the course of the story. But for at least half of the book, the antagonist is the rebellion. Before it imperils the regime he serves. I might rephrase that, but that's like, I guess his goal is that he wants to help root them out and extinguish the threat before it actually becomes a real problem. And then the stake, I wasn't sure if this would be exactly the stake. It doesn't fit perfectly, but it's like the best I could come up with. I also wanted to hint towards the fact that, because it's not just a story about a guy trying to defeat the rebellion, but it's a story about transformation and a story about redemption. And I don't know, I feel like this is compelling. The truth he uncovers may reshape him into the very traitor he hunts. All of this might change, but this is what I have so far, and I just wanted to share it with you in case it would be helpful. So back to what I was saying before. I also have a spot for a preliminary outline, and the way that I was treating the outline, I'm not following any specific structure, but what I am going to try to do is be conscious of like the mini arcs within the story. So I just kind of started writing down some ideas of some of the different mini arcs that I could have. And by mini arc, I mean in a story itself, you have kind of the status quo, then you have an inciting incident, and you have rising action. You might have like a midpoint twist or like some sort of turn and a climax, and then falling action resolution. You might also have like some stakes involved and other questions that are burning and that sort of thing. Yeah, like that's like kind of a story in and of itself. I mean, beginning, middle, end, and you've got conflict baked in there, and there's always progress happening. Now, the way that a mini arc functions is basically it's the story within a story where you have multiple complete mini arcs, and that just keeps the pacing of your story going. Like, it keeps things interesting. Like, nothing ever stalls. You're always making progress. And of course, you are heading towards that, like, end goal of the story as a whole, because the story itself has its own, like, big arc. But I'm trying to be conscious of, like, the different pockets of stories, the different mini arcs within the big arc. I hope I'm explaining that well, but if I'm not, there is a really good video that I will add to the cards. I loved it. And there's also, like, a lot of articles on this philosophy of writing and, like, story structure, I guess. guess. It just makes it so that yes, you have a big goal in the end, but there is always something smaller and more bite-sized that your character is trying to accomplish, and obstacles are getting in the way of that. So yeah, I was just trying to come up with ideas of like big main plot and how I might want the book to end, but also, at least for the first half of the story, some of the mini arcs that could be happening loosely, you know, like what would my character's goal be in this, and how would they be trying to get it, how, like what would get in their way. I also have a section for the magic system, which I started identifying some more like limitations and specifics surrounding it. I also have a section for world ideas, and within that like world idea section I have a spot for the government and religion, because those will play a very large role in my story. So like I really unpack the different positions in government and like how that ties into the magic system and to the theme and to the conflict, and also the religion and like what people think is going on versus what is actually going on. I also have a few sections for like society and like classes of people. What does it look like to be wealthy in this world versus poor in this world? Who decides that? I have a little section for geography and people groups and language that I started to write in, but not like a whole lot. Also like a spot for climate and a spot for, I guess, kind of like the rebellion and like that movement and like what's going on with them. What do they believe? Why are they doing what they're doing? And of course, there's going to be so many other things that gradually over time I'll fill out, like what's the map look like? You know, what kind of food do they have? Do they have any cultural customs beyond the like religion? What kind of technology do they have at their disposal? I mean, there's like so many other questions that you can ask, but that's where I started, were those things that I already mentioned. And yeah, over time, probably while I'm actually writing the book, I'll make some of those other decisions. And I also have a section for characters wherein I mainly focused on the main two characters so far. I think that most of it will be from the male main character's POV. That's what I'm feeling, unless I change my mind while I'm writing. But I might have a handful of chapters from the female main character's POV, just to add a little bit of dramatic irony, because I like the idea of the reader knowing things that this female main character knows, but the male main character does not know, and there's no way that he could know those things. Because I'm realizing that as a reader, it's one of my pet peeves. If the reader is getting as much information as the main character, and the reader is able to pretty much easily put together what's going on, but the main character's not, it just makes the main character feel really incompetent. It's fine if like the character is purposefully painted as, I guess, obtuse and like that's just one of their character flaws, but if it's not clear that they are not intelligent and I figure out way ahead of time what's actually going on, sometimes that can be a little bit frustrating. But I do love the feeling of knowing something that the main character does not know, but it's not because of like a deficiency in the main character's knowledge. Does that make any sense at all? So long story short, there will be some female main character chapters. Wow, that was a whole... Okay, I did not need to say that much. But yeah, I started just kind of deciding on some of their character traits and what I might want their arcs to look like, what their appearance is, their ages, a little bit of their backstory, like nothing set in stone, but just some loose ideas here and there. And then I also just came up with like 20 names that I think would fit in the world. Because in the past, I have used like real life names for my fantasy books, and I think that that works, like if they all have the same vibe. But for this one, I kind of wanted to make them up a little bit more. So I don't know, that's what I'm doing. But yeah, all in all, I am genuinely really excited about this project, and I'm probably gonna keep on working on it, but I'm realizing that like this video is getting really long and it's gonna take me a long time to finish like completely this brainstorming process. But I do actually feel like I'm kind of ready to start diving into at least a zero draft, and I will continue brainstorming in tandem with the zero draft. But that means that pretty much what I had planned to do for this video is just about done. Wow! To review, I think that we browsed Pinterest, we wrote down some preliminary ideas, we made a mood board and a playlist, started with an outline, brainstormed stuff for the world and for the characters and the conflict, and I'm feeling good about where we're at. I know that I did mention another project, Project Garden, but I don't think I'm gonna have time. Like this took so much longer than I expected. I don't think I'm gonna have time to like brainstorm a whole nother project for this video. Let me know, like if you enjoyed this process, let me know if you want me to do another video like this for Project Garden, or if I should just do that myself. just for fun, like in the background, because like I don't want my videos to get too repetitive. But if you really enjoyed this and would want to see my thought process for a different project, I mean, just let me know, because I'm totally open to that, but I also like don't want to bore people or like make videos that people aren't wanting. But this was genuinely really fun, and it's fun to be like back in the brainstorming stage. I think the part that I have the most trouble with, actually, of all things, is plotting, because I was trying to kind of put together a little bit of a loose preliminary outline. I was just like like I knew how I wanted to start the book, but like deciding on how to end the book and like how to get there and like make it interesting and have subplots and twists and all these things, I'm like I feel like it's just hard for me to come up with those things unless I'm actively writing the book, and that makes me realize, wow, I am such a discovery writer. I also so admire like the intricate plotters of the world, like James Islington and Brandon Sanderson. Like I want to have an intricate plot like that, but I also don't know if that's me as a writer, so we'll see what I'm able to do. I'm gonna do my best to try to plot more intentionally with this book, because I did run into like a lot of problems, I guess, with Project Phoenix because I pantsed so much of it. But I do think that I am more naturally a discovery writer. That's just kind of how I roll. But I want to have at least like enough of a skeleton of a plot that I feel like a little bit more guidance and confidence in the direction that I'm going, and less like, wait, did I just like write myself into a corner on accident? Oops. So yeah. Stay tuned. I might have some like drafting vlogs in my future with this project if I'm feeling like doing that. But okay, if you made it to the end of the video, first of all, thank you so much. Second of all, leave like a black bird emoji or like a raven or crow or whatever, because I think that it's gonna play a big role in this story. And also, I feel like I never ask people to like leave a like, comment, and subscribe for this channel, but I guess I will for once, so do that if you enjoy my content. I try to post roughly once a week, all sorts of writing vlogs and writing related things, sometimes some reading vlogs and writing craft stuff, all things writing, because that's my calling and my obsession, and I'm excited to share it with you all. I hope that whatever project or creative endeavor you're currently working on continues to flourish and do well. And yeah, until next time, bye!